When I first stepped into the small town of Willow Creek, I never expected my life to change. I was running away from a past that weighed me down like an anchor at sea. My name is Elena Moore, a 32-year-old woman who carried the scars of heartbreak and the ache of loneliness. My marriage had ended bitterly. My career had left me burned out, and I felt as though the world had abandoned me. I came to Willow Creek searching for silence, for a place where my thoughts could heal. That's when I found it, the old spring garden, hidden behind an ivy-covered gate at the edge of town. The garden had been abandoned for years. Wildflowers grew in reckless tangles, roses climbed broken trellises, and the fountain at its heart lay cracked and dry. Yet there was something enchanting about it. The air smelled of earth and renewal, and when the wind whispered through the cherry blossoms, I felt as though the garden was speaking to me. I decided that day I would bring it back to life. Every morning, I returned with gloves, tools, and determination. At first, the weeds fought me stubbornly. My palms blistered, and my clothes bore stains of soil, but with every small victory, the uncovering of a hidden pathway, the clearing of a bed of tulips, I felt my own heart mending. It was on the fourth morning that I met him. "Not many people dare touch this place," a warm voice said behind me. I turned and found a man standing at the gate. He was tall, with kind hazel eyes and hair that carried the faint silver of age. He wore a gardener's apron, and in his hands, he carried a basket of seedlings. "I didn't mean to intrude," I said nervously. He smiled. "You're not intruding. This garden belonged to my grandmother. I'm Thomas, by the way." That was the first of many conversations. Thomas told me stories about how his grandmother had planted every corner with love, how children once played in its meadows, how lovers once carved initials into its oak tree. The garden wasn't just soil and plants, it was history, memory, and soul. And as we worked together to restore it, I began to feel something I hadn't in years: belonging. Days turned into weeks. Spring bloomed in full glory, and so did the garden. The roses opened like velvet secrets, the fountain trickled once again, and the air carried a sweetness that lifted every heavy thought from my mind. Thomas and I grew close. He had a laugh that filled the air like birdsong, and a kindness that wrapped around me like a warm shawl. We shared lunches beneath the cherry trees, traded secrets by the fountain, and sometimes, when the moonlight silvered the garden, we simply sat in silence, letting the night speak for us. But with closeness came fear. I had been hurt before, broken promises, shattered love. My heart warned me not to trust, not to fall again. And yet, every time Thomas brushed a stray petal from my hair or spoke with that gentle tone, my heart whispered, maybe this time will be different. One evening, while clearing an old shed in the far corner, I stumbled upon a box of letters. They were yellowed with age, tied with a ribbon, and addressed to Clara. Clara, as Thomas told me, was his grandmother. Curiosity burned in me. I read them slowly, carefully. They were love letters from a soldier during the war. The words were filled with longing, hope, and promises of a future in the spring garden. But the last letter ended abruptly, without farewell. When I showed them to Thomas, his eyes clouded. "He never returned," Thomas said softly. "She waited every spring. She kept the garden alive for him. Maybe that's why, after she passed, the garden wilted. It carried her grief." The story struck my heart deeply. Love could bloom and yet remain unfinished, like a garden waiting endlessly for its gardener. And I wondered, was I also like Clara, waiting for someone who would never return? The garden taught me more than patience. It taught me that healing isn't about erasing the past, but about planting new seeds despite it. One afternoon, Thomas surprised me with a gift, a small packet of sunflower seeds. "For you," he said, his eyes warm. "They always face the sun, no matter what." Something inside me shifted. That evening, as we planted the seeds side by side, I realized that my spring had finally arrived, not just in the garden, but in my soul. Weeks later, the sunflowers bloomed, tall and golden, swaying proudly in the breeze. And when Thomas took my hand beneath their golden glow, I didn't pull away. I let love end be why the end of the season. The spring garden was alive again. Children came to play, couples strolled through its paths, and neighbors gathered around the fountain. It wasn't just a place of flowers anymore. It was a place of hope. Thomas and I became its caretakers, not just of soil and roots, but of the memories and dreams it carried. Every time I walked through its gates, I felt Clara's spirit smiling. Her love had never been in vain. It had nurtured a garden that would keep healing others for generations. And as for me, the woman who once came to Willow Creek broken and lost, I found not only a garden but also a home, a purpose, and a love that promised to bloom every spring. The garden, like life, had taught me this. No matter how harsh the winter, spring will always return. One golden morning, as I trimmed roses by the fountain, I noticed an old man standing at the garden gate. His back was slightly bent, his coat worn, but his eyes carried memories that seemed older than the garden itself. Thomas greeted him warmly, but when the man introduced himself, I saw a change in Thomas's expression. "My name is Richard," the man said, voice trembling. I once knew Clara." It struck me immediately. Could this be the soldier who had written those letters? The old man pulled a weathered notebook from his coat. Inside were sketches of flowers, penned decades ago. "I was supposed to return," he whispered, tears filling his eyes. "But the war, it broke me. I thought she'd forgotten me. But when I heard about this garden, I knew Clara never stopped loving." The weight of his confession hung heavy in the air. For a moment, silence blanketed us, broken only by the rustle of leaves. Thomas placed a hand on his shoulder. "She never forgot. She built this place for you, for love. And now it lives on." Richard wept openly, his frail body shaking. We guided him through the garden, letting him touch the roses Clara had once planted, letting him stand by the fountain where she had once waited. Watching him, I realized that love doesn't always need endings. It lives in what we create, what we nurture, what we pass on.